Hi, I'm Tom Edwards. I'm the Chief Digital and Data Officer for Omnicom Health Group, and I'm a futurist that speaks through Blackfin 360. All right, today we're going to talk about the evolution of experience. So for the last 20 years, I focused a lot on aligning consumer behavior and emerging technology to drive business growth. And we live in a world of constant change. Disruption is the new normal, but yet it's less about disruption now, and it's more about this exponential acceleration. What I'm seeing is a convergence. It's not just AI and AR, but we're seeing this massive acceleration towards convergence. Technology and culture are now one and the same. So today, we're going to talk a lot about emerging trends and specifically how that impacts consumer behavior. So for the automotive industry, it's been undergoing a massive transformation, not only due to advancements in intelligent systems, but also in how we connect with the consumer pre, during, and post-sale. So your business is evolving, and we need to evolve with it. All right, so I'm a big fan of pop culture. We're going to look at the evolution of experience through the lens of some very well-known pop culture references. And this gives you a pretty good look into my personality. We're going to talk about Star Wars. We're going to talk about Fortnite and gaming. We're going to talk about Pixar movies. We're going to talk about The Matrix, Stranger Things, and Minority Report. So before I talk about the present, I like to talk a little bit about the past. And for me, what really got it all started was the original Star Wars back in 1977. I loved the movie. But to me, my friends wanted to be Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. I really liked the droids, C-3PO and R2-D2, because they seemed to enable the main character's experience every step of the way. But growing up in the 80s, this is more of what I saw. This is Robbie the Robot from the original Nintendo Entertainment System. And it wasn't until the late 90s and early 2000s when I began to see some hope, began to see the rise of connectivity through mobile devices. And does everybody remember the old school Motorola Razr? Yeah? Yeah. Remember trying to text with that, the 3 numbers and 3 letters? Anyway. So this is a key point around innovation, because true disruption begins with removing a barrier from an existing product while building upon the familiar. So to me, transformational innovation didn't really happen with the original launch of the iPhone in 2007. When it actually happened was in 2008 with the launch of the App Store. That's what really began to drive scale around technology and adoption, because it was an ecosystem that democratized access for third parties to begin creating personalized experiences. So with that in mind, we're going to look at and take and build upon that idea of democratization and access. So when I think about future trends and I think about the application of that with consumer behavior, I always think of 4 core filters. I think of empower. This is technology that empowers individuals and really drives a sense of control. I think of exponential. This is the rise of intelligent systems. I think about enhance and that connectivity between physical and digital reality. And finally, I think about experience. How do you begin to shift towards what I call an experience mindset, so that you can really unlock the true potential for your business across all of these core areas? All right, so we're going to start with empower. Empower, again, is about control, and we're going to touch on 4 key areas within empower. We're going to talk about Gen Z. We're going to talk about how the lens is life. We're going to talk about the role of private messaging, and we're going to talk about how the camera is a bridge to intelligence. So let's start a little bit with Gen Z. So I have 3 kids. So I've got Gavin, 20, Audrey, who's 17, and Grant, who's now 14. And they're part of the first mobile first generation. They learn to swipe before they learn to speak. And their specific expectations around behaviors and technology are significantly impacting the world around us. Let's take gaming, for example. So today, most kids are spending at least an hour and a half a day gaming. Within Gen Z, it's even more prevalent. So 96% of Gen Z, those are kids born from 1996 to 2010, are actually gaming. And it's not, do you play? It's, what do you play? And this is having a significant impact because gaming is now becoming a core foundation for the launch of the Metaverse. So if you think about the metaverse, think about it, you may have heard a lot about this term thrown around here lately, but you can think about it as the internet in 3D. So it's eventually going to bridge the gap between our two-dimensional screens and everyday experiences. And this idea of a metaverse, it consists of these connected ecosystems. It's going to offer this immersive and shared type of experience. So one foundational example actually happened in Fortnite. Recently, Travis Scott gave a concert within the platform in-game. And over 28 million people watched this concert, some in-game, some via streaming services, some via just YouTube and other areas. But 28 million people concurrently tuned in to watch it. So from an entertainment perspective, it becomes a new platform. Another point to consider around this, so you may have kids playing Roblox right now, and you may have been asked constantly for Robux, etc. The really genius part about Roblox is that it's actually a UGC, or user-generated content platform. It basically empowers its users to create content. And they're teaching basically very young Gen Zers how to code, how to create and craft experiences, and potentially even monetize those experiences. It has its own economy. It's really an interesting case study and more and more brands are actually interacting within Roblox. Now, so a recent prediction by Gartner is that by 2026, 25% of people are going to spend at least an hour a day in the metaverse. So this behavior is already being conditioned in Gen Z. You're seeing it. Now, taking it from the metaverse, let's talk a little bit about Web3, because these are two different things. So putting the metaverse and all these connected ecosystems aside for just a minute, let's roll it back. Web 1 was the early days of the web. It was read-only. It was like posting of different sites. We're all building our GeoCity sites and, publishing in HTML. Web 2, it's more about the big tech giants. You've got the Facebooks, now Metas of the world, the Snaps, etc. This was participatory and centralized. Now Web 3 is all about decentralization and more control. Again, this idea of control coming back to the users around data, identity, content, currency, all built on the blockchain where you can have actual authentication happening. So this leads into NFTs. So NFTs are basically non-fungible tokens. They're built on the Ethereum blockchain. You can basically buy them with Ether. So this is my personal collection of purchased and created NFTs. It's not a difficult process to mint an NFT, but they're much more than digital art. You can attach a lot to a single NFT. So you can create a closed community. You can have access to music like Snoop Dogg is doing with Def Jam Music. You can have real-world assets like a car or virtual fashion or tickets or membership or video clips and so much more tied to it. Now, a really interesting use case here is what StockX is doing. So I'm a big sneakerhead, so I'm already a user of the platform. What's interesting is that Nike actually reports that 26% of their revenue is coming from both their digital and their Web3 ventures. Think about that for a minute. Now with StockX, this is a popular online resale and authentication service. They recently launched StockX Vault. And Vault NFTs are digital tokens that represent ownership of physical items. Each Vault NFT is backed by a physical item held in StockX custody. It's tied directly one-to-one via the blockchain. So that is a really interesting use case of tying this into it. So let's take an example. Let's take a car, for example. So if you think about the automotive industry, there's a real opportunity to align a virtual instance of a vehicle-centric NFT that can coincide with a physical vehicle. You can unlock exclusive content or even that virtual vehicle in a metaverse experience. So what if in the near future you're actually selling the NFT of a vehicle and that becomes a smart contract for ownership of the physical vehicle on the blockchain? So this also means you can have this digital version again that exists across the metaverse with you. So regardless of whether you're in the physical world or the digital world, your car remains. And speaking of NFTs, another thing that's on the rise are POAPs. So POAPs are a type of NFT. It's a unique digital collectible that shows you attended an event or an experience, and they're becoming really popular. So some of them are being used as bookmarks for life events. You can engage directly with POAP holders, you can do polls, events, giveaways, and some are even using POAPs like basically to engage certain communities. So it's a really interesting way to have another type of digital collectible that you can afford. All right, so we've talked about the metaverse, we've talked about Web3. Let's continue to bring it back to the individual and empowering them. So last year, there were about 400 million selfies taken. Most of us in the room view the camera as a capture device, but for Gen Z, they captured over 1.3 trillion images. And it's not just about a capture device for them, it's really a form of communication. The camera is replacing traditional communication methods for them. And this is my daughter Audrey talking to her friend Presley Kate. They would spend just hours on FaceTime together during that point in time. Now, the other thing that's interesting with Gen Z is the camera is actually becoming the home screen. 69% of them view the camera as a platform to create from. 83% have played with AR filters. So again, their expectations of how the technology is going to take and empower their creativity is a big part of it. Again, it's all about control. And this comes back to the idea to the App Store. Democratization and allowing for third parties to create these personalized experiences is what drives scale. We already saw it once with the Apple App Store in that example. And that also transcends not just in the terms of the using of the camera, but also into private messaging. So private messaging surpassed open social in 2016. And it's a core way that individuals are connecting with one another. And you're seeing this blurring of text and AR filters and all these experiences. And you can do a lot through a single conversational thread. This is becoming a critical way that businesses and organizations can stay connected because 69% of millennials expect to have an on-demand conversation with a brand at any point during the day. So private messaging is another key element of control that's being driven through the user. Now, this even extends into shopping. So let's look again here. Here's an example of, there's the active shopping component and then there's the passive buying component here. So with Kia, you can do a little bit of both. You can go in, you can explore the vehicle, customize it, drop it wherever you are, and this is all being activated from a messaging experience. So as we continue to move down this path of control and expectation, you can look again at how the camera is a bridge to intelligence, to where supercharged through AI, which we're going to talk about here in the exponential experience section, you can take a two-dimensional piece of cardboard, convert that into something that could be rendered into a digitally enabled asset. It's pretty amazing. All right, that's all about empower. Now we're going to shift. We're going to talk about the role of ease and convenience in intelligent systems and how that's going to play a key role in the evolution of experiences. We're going to talk about the Pixar theory. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about virtual assistants. We're going to talk about the proxy web. All right, let's start with the Pixar theory. Who likes Pixar movies? Yeah? The Pixar theory states that everything happens on a single timeline, from the good dinosaur all the way through to Cars. And during the course of this, we see the rise and fall of humanity. Now, in The Incredibles, AI via the Omnidroid is introduced into the timeline. And we all think, okay, this is going to follow a similar sci-fi trope to where AI is going to take over and it's going to be a hostile takeover. But in The Incredibles 2, the master plan was revealed. It's not a hostile takeover. It's not. It's ease and convenience. And I've covered the eyes of the innocent here, but across my research across generational cohort shows that ease and convenience is the number one driver for why people will adopt and use intelligent systems. Now, let's shift and talk about AI. So artificial intelligence is basically the ability for a computer or robot to do tasks that are usually done by humans because they require human-level intelligence and discernment. There are three types of AI. There's artificial narrow intelligence, think Alexa and Siri. Artificial general intelligence, for any of my gamers out there, think like Cortana from Halo. And there's artificial super intelligence. This is an intellect that's smarter than any human in any field possible. So we joke a lot about super AI from entertainment, etc. So when I think about the categorization and breakdown of AI, I think about it through the level of 5 levels of autonomy. So I think about it through the level of chat, which is basic chat functionality, virtual assistants. Then I think about digital and synthetic avatars, emotive robotics, and Westworld. And we're entering this golden age of AI. There are three primary reasons for this. The first, it's hardware. We're seeing decreasing costs of graphical processing units, as well as the ability to deliver scalable machine learning ops infrastructure. The second, data is oil for AI. And this is the most important component. So we generate 2.5 quintillion bytes. 2.5. That's a 1 with 18 zeros behind it of data every day. That's a lot of selfies and pictures of your food. You know who you are. And the third is really around algorithms. So we see advancing algorithms. And an algorithm is a process or a set of rules followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations. And a simple analog, think about a recipe for baking a cake. So that's a really simple way to think about algorithms. Now, many of you may have heard of machine learning. So when we talk about AI, you've heard about this term, but machine learning is a subset of AI. It's basically human-coded algorithms that parse data, learn, and make predictions about a specific use case. This could be self-driving cars, fraud detection, vision-based research, price prediction, natural language processing. Now, image recognition is also a well-known and widespread example of machine learning. So it can identify an object as a digital image, and basically based on the intensity of the pixels in the black and white images or color images. But one of my favorite examples is from training of a model by analyzing blueberry muffins and chihuahuas. So we've touched on machine learning, image recognition. Let's talk a little bit about natural language processing. NLP is a field of combining linguistics and artificial intelligence. And this focuses on intelligent analysis of the written language. And NLP is critical for marketing because anytime we need to extract information from data, we'll use some form of NLP. Search, information retrieval, information extraction, sentiment analysis, all of these are aspects of NLP. It's also key because there are 8 billion voice-based assistants in the wild. 8 billion right now. And have you ever wondered how that works? It's a combination of NLP. It's taking your voice, converting it to text, and retrieving information in real time. So that's machine learning. Deep learning is key in your everyday life. So deep learning uses neural networks, basically creating multi-layer data structures based off the human brain. And it uses it to weight different data. A simple way to think about this is how content is served to you via your Facebook or Meta feed. It learns your preferences, it's serving your content. That's a deep learning algorithm that's training itself over time. Another thing that you're going to see very soon are what's called generative models. You're already seeing this, so it's not only about recognition, it's also about generation of images and text and content, and you can basically generate anything. So these foundational models are able to take and drive new forms of creativity as well as creation of text and content. So with a platform called GPT-3, you can auto-generate text and other models and develop basically different types of copy variations, from creation of SEO-focused blog posts, listicles, scripts for YouTube, and whatever else. Now that we've touched on some of the basics for machine learning and deep learning, how can we begin thinking about this? Well, one, AI is more intelligence augmentation than it is hostile takeover. That's a really key thing to understand. It's taking and enhancing our ability to process large amounts of data and information and apply them to our business in a way much faster than just an individual human could. This is important because we're moving towards a time of predictive decisioning. Much of how the metaverse is going to evolve, much of how this kind of connectivity between digital and physical, it's really predicated on this idea of predictive decisioning. It's anticipating your specific needs. And this is important because we're moving from this time of the Internet of Things to autonomous things, to driving ease and convenience. So in order to do this, we have to begin seeing these predictive algorithms really come to the forefront. Now, let's bring it back to our 5 levels of autonomy. Let's go one by one. So the first being chatbots. So we talked about the role of Messenger earlier in the presentation, but now bringing it back to conversational experiences in AI. This initially started to accelerate back in 2016, and we're seeing this rapid rise of messenger-centric experiences for brands to drive CRM, to understand preferences, and to launch different experiences. Here's an example for Kia with Kian. Kian is basically their specific chatbot, and it's really helping to drive this qualification mechanism for interested customers. It can deliver them into chat, drive them to a dealership to actually test drive a vehicle. So that's a really key thing to consider, is how can you create experiences that leverage these existing platforms. Now, the second level is around voice-based assistants. So how many people are using Alexa, other smart speaker in your home? Yeah. I mentioned earlier that there are 8 billion devices. And this is crazy. Like, there are 45 million smart speakers, 77 million in your car. And who wants to guess what the actual number one platform is that's being used today? It's actually Siri. So there are over 10 queries per month by a majority of users that are actually using Siri as a platform. All right. And the other thing to consider is, as we begin to evolve and it understands our preferences, and this is an example of an app concierge service in drive mode for Google Assistant. It's learning about your preferences and putting all of the key pertinent information into one location for you. And not only that, it's beginning to, one of the other things I see is AI as a proxy for you, meaning it'll take on some of these menial tasks, drive ease and convenience. This is an example of Google Assistant booking a trip for an individual without them having to do anything during the entire process. So again, it's taking and providing that simple context for the user, and it's driving that reservation.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm an AI avatar created entirely by artificial intelligence. Now back to your presentation, Tom. Oh, tell me more about the Pixar theory. I love Wall-E.
So digital humans are what I consider level 3. So here you've got basically, it can be kind of creepy, I know. But digital synthetic humans that are driven by AI that can basically read and respond to you based on how you're looking at the camera, reading your facial expressions, and basically respond with a corpus of data and information, or can be pre-programmed based on what you're doing. And what's interesting is 62% of people are more comfortable with a human-like voice and intellect than just a regular kind of chat response. And this is an interesting kind of play, because from a customer service standpoint, this can have a significant impact on business. And we're already seeing this being tested and piloted in many industries like the financial services industry. All right. So level 4 is true physical robotics. So Elon Musk claims that Tesla's Optimus robot, which you see on the screen, is going to generate more revenue than electric vehicles. They started at a price point of about $10,000, and their goal is to drive down labor cost. They're about 5'8", 125 pounds. They're going to be designed to perform different tasks, such as going to the grocery store on behalf of you. Now, the other side of this is also emotive robotics. So that's basically, the robot can read and react and recognize, interpret, process, and simulate elements of human behavior. So, and this is really kind of a key concept to begin driving towards this ability to adapt to you moving forward. So this is a fun example of where an autopilot, basically a self-driving car named Jack, is actually driving an emotive robot, Sophia from Hanson Robotics, on a specific test drive. And so during the course of this, the vehicle is self-driving, plus you have an AI. I find that really funny. So where are we going with this? So as these systems become more pervasive in our lives and begin to offload more elements from our routine, we're going to see the rise of what I call the proxy web, where my virtual assistant may be able to talk to yours. It may work out where we need to meet, take into consideration all the different factors tied to parking and any other external environmental factors, to where it's convenient for us. And they'll understand preferences and be able to drive that whole experience. And even from a marketing perspective, what we're going to see is the shift from the consumer being in the center. We're also going to see the rise of system-based or AI-driven personas. So how you market, how you interact, how you drive and deliver a message may fundamentally change, because there are times where you're going to be influencing an algorithm versus evoking emotion from an individual. All right, that's exponential. Now, let's talk about enhanced. Enhanced, again, is that connection and driver between physical and digital. And one of the best examples of this, I love this back in 1999, all the way up to the fourth release, is The Matrix. So The Matrix for me has been one of the foundational films like Star Wars that really helps to kind of drive my love of technology and this whole idea of reality versus simulation. And speaking of simulation, who's heard of the simulation theory? It basically proposes that all of reality, including the Earth and its universe, is in fact an artificial simulation. Now, whether or not you believe that, at this point, are you ready to continue to either take the red pill, the blue pill, and stay perfectly content with how things are, or take the red pill and see how far the rabbit hole goes? I thought you'd say red pill. Let's keep going. All right. Now we're going to talk some more about the metaverse. We're going to talk about computer vision. We're going to talk about digital twins. We're going to talk about synthetic reality and the idea of perception. All right. So a big part of the metaverse is now tied to virtual reality. And when you think about virtual reality, most people think about it in terms of games, but actually only 16% of people are using it to play games. It's much more about creating and evoking presence. So using it to look at, 360-degree video, etc. Now, as experiences continue to rise, and this is me, my oldest son Gavin, my youngest son Grant, we're at a void experience. So this is what I call hyper reality. So not only are we going to be focusing on kind of core headsets within virtual reality or AR-based glasses, but we may also be incorporating haptic suits and integrating other senses. Like there was a research that came out just the other day about taste associated with VR. So putting sensors in your mouth so that it can basically drive that through. There you go. And I mentioned digital humans and the digital workforce earlier, but another key point to consider is your own place in these virtual worlds. You may have 5 or 6 or 7 different digital identities or digital synthetics, digital synths that represent you across these different, and each one may have a unique need and affinity, and your personality may come through differently. So even think about in today's Web 2 world, where you may be posting content across social platforms that could vary by audience. And how we work and collaborate is fundamentally changing. I mean, the pandemic basically accelerated a lot of this to where before we were mainly focused on in-person meetings. Now having a virtual meeting is nothing new. And having the ability to interact with your team in real time is really, really fun and interesting. So taking it a step further, so that's going into kind of immersive worlds and, getting into virtual reality. To me, one of the bigger things that's going to be happening is not only what's happening with headsets on, it's really about what's happening with heads-up displays and moving from the phone as the primary way we interface with technology into kind of a different form factor, like smart glasses or smart contacts. And computer vision is going to play a critical role in that. So computer vision is basically a form of AI that pulls high-dimensional elements from the environment. Now, as we think about that, you can think about how computer vision is used even in automotive, where you can have facial recognition technology that can look at a driver and make a prediction on whether they're actually potentially falling asleep or not paying attention, so that from a safety perspective, you can kind of help that process. But bringing it back for just a minute, when we think about computer vision in our world and how we're interacting in the camera as a home screen, this is an example of Google Lenses. So Google Lenses has had over 1 billion queries based on that, to where you can basically hold your phone up and identify and understand and pull context from the world around you. That's really key. And it doesn't just apply to the world. It also applies to traditional search. So text-based search. Now you'll see this integration to where you can have 3D elements that you can drop into your space real time. I mean, if I was a student and had this back when I was in school, this is to understand muscle flexion. Like, it's such a difference from just a two-dimensional, or some type of illustration that's sitting there. Now, as we're continuing to make this progress forward, we talked about the metaverse. Now we're talking about heads-up glasses. Now we're talking about augmented reality glasses. One key facet of all of this is that the physical world around us is actually mapped. That has to happen. So this is an example of a robot from CES that's autonomous. It can go around and scan the digital world. Another key part, this whole path towards simulation, starts with capturing the real world. Again, this is volumetric capture. So I had the opportunity to get a full body scan, and now I'm able to be placed into different virtual environments in near photorealistic ways. And speaking of photorealistic, this blew my mind. So this was at South by Southwest this year, and this is Portal. This is actually a hologram. So you can see there to the right, I'm standing there on that, that white screen, and then it's being rendered almost perfectly with full three-dimensional viewing within the Portal experience. Crazy, right? So as you think about this next example is this next progression. So the physical world is being scanned. Now you can actually have this in the form of a digital twin. So this is a retail experience that's been fully taken and realized now in a virtual way. So the physical location is now mirrored with a digital location, and that's key. And so how are we going to begin moving towards this? We've seen, Google Glass, we've seen, Snap Spectacles. Now recently we've seen Facebook and Ray-Ban launch their version of a smart glass. And pretty soon, Apple has been working on Project Mirror Shade for a while now. And when a provider like Apple releases a product, you know that there's already this built-in ecosystem and this desire tied to the brand. So we are going to see some glasses-based form factor or smart contact coming out over at least the next few years. And we're even seeing it too in terms of automotive. So here's an example from Mini USA. This is kind of their version of augmented vision. So it basically can overlay items in the physical world, but you can also see through the vehicle, and it stitches together with the camera even things that are happening around the vehicle. You'll see it here momentarily whenever a skateboarder comes up on the right side of the vehicle, and the individual driving can actually see through the door to potentially identify the threat right there. Now, as we continue to move down this path of autonomy, so the car in and of itself is going to become more of an entertainment center versus just a utility of driving. This is an example from Edgy Bees, to where they're taking kind of a Mario Kart approach to the driving experience. So based on cameras that are able to project out in front of the road, you can actually apply this and, basically even have a loyalty component tied to it. And as we continue to drive this new way forward in this connection between mixing of physical and digital reality, here's another example of mixed reality, to where you can take and fully render three-dimensional elements in your space and use them to basically further enhance your knowledge moving forward. And it's all leading to this. This is AR at scale with you can visualize different overlays. And, one of the core things, if I had to do it all over again, I would go back and go into law school and specifically study digital rights management, because I feel like that's going to be the next billion-dollar industry, as you have all of this open air and all of these individual experiences are going to be delivered and personalized for individuals. Like, there is money to be made there. And the other thing to consider, too, is we're seeing the rise of new economies. So especially with virtual goods and everything that's happening in Web3 and Metaverse experiences, we're going to see that continue to expand to our physical world as we shift kind of mobile devices to glasses. So you may put your clothes on, but you may also have a digitally rendered outfit that you can also show to the rest of the world too. So how are we going to evolve? How are we going to get there? This fully realized vision of a connected metaverse, the seamless, basically connection between digital and physical. So to me, there are a couple ways in which this happens. One, we're going to begin to see the virtual assistant continue to move to the center of operating systems. You're already seeing it happen with Google. Now there's going to be less dependency on individual applications and more of stitching together what's called scenes, to where it's taking different app experiences and putting them all together. And the other thing you're going to see is what I call the proxy twin hypothesis. It's where your virtual assistant becomes your preference center and how you can actually activate and unlock personalized augmented reality or mixed reality experiences based on your specific preferences. So everyone's experience walking into an automotive showroom or into a Target retail location or wherever is completely different. And this is where we're going to see this idea of multimodal experiences at scale. So when is this going to happen? When is the technology going to adapt to us versus us adapting to it? In my mind, that's 2030. That's when it's going to happen. Based on all of my conversations with key players across the tech industry and looking at kind of the acceleration and expansion of a lot of these specific technologies, following the patents all the way through to launch of products. The pandemic actually delayed it. My core estimate was originally 2028. Now it's kind of moved to 2030 based on supply chain. But at this specific point, it is coming. So that is exponential. So far, we've talked about empower, which is all about control, exponential, which is all about intelligent systems, and enhanced, which is all about the connectivity between digital and physical. And finally, we're going to talk about experience. So how do you begin to develop an experience mindset? So first, you have to change how you think about technology. It can be intimidating, but there are steps you can take to reduce the levels of discomfort around change. So as I said around the beginning of the talk, when talking about Star Wars, you have to understand the past to understand where experiences are going. Today, experiences are a lot like the old school arcade from the 80s. Each experience was kind of self-contained. Think about if you have a strategy specifically for Facebook and Meta or Instagram or Snap or TikTok or whatever. But the expectation moving forward is that experiences are fully integrated. It's about creating ease and convenience and seamless experiences. Now, there's an expectation of personalized experiences. We've been conditioned to expect these on-demand experiences. And interestingly enough, Gen Z spends 2.5 hours a day with on-demand content. So it's already there. We're being conditioned. So, and it's not enough to just post information about your product or your service and expect buyers to come. The key thing is to blend physical and digital in kind of an omni-channel way so that you can create these authentic connections with your customers, whether that's through kind of immersive real-life experiences or overlaying digital experiences that enhance or extend the IP or whatever it may be. But this is now the expectation moving forward. All right. So 5 ways to personally shift your mindset. And I love the old school Sesame Street, the count. So the first piece to think about is that willpower in and of itself, it's not enough. Willpower is like a gas tank. You start with a full tank, but you deplete your supply each time you use it. So, it doesn't take long to simply give up and abandon your goals when you rely on motivation and willpower to achieve them. And 25% of people give up after the first week and 60% quit after the first month. We may not like change, but we have to basically continue to move forward with this next part, which is getting comfortable with failure. So changing your mindset is hard work, and frustration and failure is a part of it. So when most people hit a wall, they give up. But we have to prepare for failure mentally. They know it's coming, it doesn't scare you, it's going to happen. Adjust, get back in the game, give yourself permission to fail, and be persistent. That's incredibly key. And how we do this is we begin by setting specific goals. So start with a small goal. So if you want to understand, NFTs, or you want to understand what's happening with the Metaverse and how that may potentially impact your business, read 1 article a day. Set a bigger goal for trying to understand, that territory, but make sure you're doing things that are small enough and attainable enough to where you can begin to build a solid knowledge base over time. Now, once you've built that knowledge base, it's incredibly important to begin experimenting because you have to think about new ways to evolve your business. Once you've set those goals, it's important to follow through, begin to test new approaches, but do it in a very iterative manner. Constantly collect feedback every step of the way because experiences are constantly evolving. The one constant in our world is change, and we have to be adaptable. We have to construct our business strategy around a 70-20-10 rule, where 70% is tried and true, 20% are areas that you've started to move your business to at least to test and learn, but maybe the full return on investment may not be fully realized. and 10% is truly for open innovation and for trying to find new ways to connect with your customers and consumers. It may not pay immediate dividends, but those investments will begin to pay off over time as you better understand what's the most relevant experience for your target customer. All right. In this final area, this is the how-to section. So get your camera ready because we've reached that point where we've gone from listening to action. So here we go. Here's your homework. So we're going to talk a little bit about 6 different areas that I want you to really become familiar with. The first is Ethereum, then NFTs, then the Metaverse, AI, the digital workforce, and emerging tech. So this code is a comprehensive overview of Ethereum. So Ethereum is the primary blockchain again for NFTs, and by scanning this code, it'll take you to a beginner level course around understanding all there is to know about Ethereum. Because again, Ether is one of the primary ways you can drive the digital collectible ecosystem. Speaking of digital collectibles, here's your code for NFTs. This is your comprehensive overview of NFTs, from setting up your wallet to where to purchase, and things like OpenSea, and some of the ins and outs associated with all things NFT. And here's a beginner's guide to the Metaverse. It breaks down everything in plain English for those interested in diving deeper into this emerging virtual phenomenon. So I'll give you a second to scan the Metaverse code if that's your core area of interest. Now, for those interested in diving deeper into AI, here's a link that I gave to a talk that I gave earlier this month on this topic. So it'll go into all of the ins and outs of everything from machine learning to deep learning with different examples and commentary. Now, for those of you who are interested in experimenting with launching a digital workforce or having a digital avatar for customer service, or even for just internal training, here's a link to Sensia. And what you'll be able to do is there's a free demo there that you can basically type in different types of inputs and impress all your friends. And now with emerging technology, I publish a lot of content on my blog, blackfin360.com. So over 600 pieces of content, lots and lots of different videos across a number of different topics. The QR code on the screen right now is from my recent TEDx talk that lives on TED.com. So if you're interested in an abbreviated version of this, the 13-minute version, it's right there on TED for you. So these are the 6 codes in case you want to take a screenshot of all 6 and have that for your future reference. Let you scan that for just a moment. And I just wanted to thank you. You have been an amazing crowd so far, and if you want to stay connected, you can definitely scan the QR code. It'll take you to my website where I publish all of this various content for all of the topics listed above. Again, I'm Tom Edwards. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.